Jim Henson was a true visionary who transformed the realms of puppetry and television. He was an extraordinary collaborator and had a true gift for surrounding himself with amazingly talented people. He brought out the best in everyone, tirelessly creating, innovating, and surpassing the boundaries of what was possible. Henson and his team, who initially included just him and his wife, but went on to include a great number of talented individuals, reinvented reality and made history along the way. Jim Henson got his first job working in television as a senior in high school, performing with puppets he made by hand at home. At the time, he considered puppets as merely a means to an end, and he planned to become a commercial artist. In college, Henson and his colleague, Jane Neville, worked as a team making puppets and performing with them on television. The puppets they created were soft and expressive, which made them radically different from other puppets at that time. According to Entrepreneur, quote, Henson's puppets featured extremely wide, overbiting mouths and flexible arms that could be moved by rods. Made of foam rubber and covered with fleece, wool, flannel, or other soft material, the Muppets were pliable, so their faces could be manipulated to imitate human facial expressions. End quote. Together, Henson and Neville came up with the word Muppets, which is a combination of Muppets and marionettes. One of the early Muppets was Kermit, whom he made using his mother's old spring coat and a ping-pong ball cut in half. Henson and Neville's performances were so original and fun to watch that in 1956 they were given their own show called Sam and Friends, which ran for 6 years and earned an Emmy for Best Local Entertainment. According to Entrepreneur, it was Sam and Friends that, quote, introduced many of what would become Henson trademarks: music, off-the-wall humor, and technical tricks, end quote. Part of what made their performances so enjoyable was Henson's unique way of making the Muppets talk. Instead of just saying the words, he would have the Muppets attack the words. During those early years, when Henson first started working in television studios, he was already honing his craft and looking for new ways to break ground. For instance, he would engage the cameramen, asking about the different lenses and filming techniques, and together they would experiment. He discovered new ways of producing optical effects that he would use in his own productions later on. It was Henson who first realized that when puppets were shown on TV, there was no longer a need for a stage, because the television itself was the stage. While performing, he and Jane would have their own monitors, so they could see their characters in real time as they performed them. According to Deanne Durrett, quote, in his book of Muppets and Men, Christopher Finch wrote, through his acquired knowledge of camera angles, lenses, and special effects, and through the use of imaginative editing and ingeniously designed sets, Henson has evolved a system that permits his puppet characters to move in cinematic space almost as freely as human performers, and to interact convincingly with human performers, end quote. In 1957, a year after Sam and Friends began, Henson and Neville began making television commercials using Muppets. It's hard to believe, but prior to this time, commercials were always serious. Jim Henson invented the use of comedy in television commercials. The first commercials they created advertised coffee for the Wilkins Coffee Company, and they were so popular that it wasn't long before they earned record ratings. In fact, they made so much money by creating commercials that Henson was able to achieve a high level of artistic freedom early in his career. Creating commercials from scratch gave Henson the chance to write his own scripts, draw his own storyboards, and create and puppeteer new Muppet characters, in addition to producing and directing most of the commercials himself. All of these helped him to further diversify his talents.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Mrs. Olsen.
Hi.
I hope you and Tom are enjoying meeting all your new neighbors, Diane.
Oh, we are.
Oh, I'm so glad.
You made us feel so at home.
Everything's wonderful.
Even the coffee's better. Here.
You mean better than you get at home? I know. Well, what's the matter with your coffee, Diane? Wish I knew. I just can't seem to make good coffee. Oh, good coffee is no problem. If you use a coffee with better flavor. Folgers. Folgers coffee? Yeah, Folgers is different. They blend it special. And you see, Diane, Folgers is mountain-grown coffee. Is mountain-grown any better? That's the richest kind. You try it, okay?
Say, this is really a good cup of coffee.
Like it? It's Folgers.
It's as good as Mrs. Olson's.
Try Folgers, the mountain-grown coffee. Mountain-grown for better flavor.
Put your money in here and you get a cup of Wilkins coffee. I don't want any. Then push that button. How about a cup of Wilkins? With this camera, I shoot pictures of people who don't drink Wilkins coffee. I'm ready. Shoot. Anybody else? You'll like this new car. Yeah? It's got a built-in maker for Wilkins Instant Coffee. Who needs it? Well, you can't sell them all. Got your parachute? I forgot it. How about the Wilkins coffee? I forgot that too. You'll never forget this.
Henson and Nebel decided to form Muppets, Inc. in 1958. In 1959, they got married, and in 1961, Jane decided to take a step back, so they hired Jerry Jewell to fill in. According to Allison Inches, quote, by 1963, increasing demand for national television appearances and an ever-growing list of commercial clients prompted Henson to seek out the talents of master puppet builder Don Salem and a young puppeteer named Frank Oz, end quote. Known as the funniest Muppeteer, Oz didn't stick to the script, and no one ever knew what he would do or say during performances. He and Henson formed a dynamic comedy duo, and would often laugh until they cried. The first nationally known Muppet was Ralph the Dog, created for a Purina dog chow commercial in 1962. Henson drew a picture of Ralph on a scrap of paper, and Salem brought the character to life just as Henson had imagined him. Ralph is what's known as a live hand puppet, requiring the skills of two puppeteers at the same time. Henson operated the head and left hand, while Oz operated the right hand. During his lifetime, Henson went on to make hundreds of commercials for over 40 companies. Jim Henson was first approached by Joan Gans Cooney, who represented the Children's Television Workshop, to make Sesame Street in 1968. Jim initially refused because he wanted to cater to adult audiences, but later agreed to do the show because he saw the cultural value in it. Jennifer Mandel writes, quote, the children's public television program Sesame Street strived to exemplify and create an egalitarian and more tolerant community, both on screen and in actuality. Sesame Street's aim to educate disadvantaged urban preschool children and put them on an equal intellectual level as their middle-class peers when they entered grade school was central to the development and direction of the show. End quote. Educators had noticed that children loved commercials, and Joan believed that a show made up of short, entertaining segments similar to the style of commercials, combined with the appeal of the Muppets, would be a great way to hold preschoolers' attention long enough to teach them basic concepts. During part of the show, Muppet characters would interact with real people on a stage designed to look like a real street. These street scenes were mixed in with other elements in the show. According to Wikipedia, quote, from its first episode, Sesame Street has structured its format by using a strong visual style, fast-moving action, humor, and music, as well as animation and live-action short films. End quote. With his experience and genius for making commercials, his drawing and animation skills, combined with the Muppets, Joan thought Henson was a shoo-in for the job. According to Time, Joan Gans Cooney would later say, quote, "He was our era's Charlie Chaplin, Mae West, W.C. Fields, and Marx Brothers. And indeed, he drew from all of them to create a new art form that influenced popular culture around the world." End quote. According to Alice in Inches, quote, "Sesame Street would go on to win 71 Emmys, 8 Grammys, and the hearts of children and families all around the world, making the Muppets a household name. It was the street that paved the way to some of Jim's greatest projects, including The Muppet Show, Muppet Movies, and a successful production company with offices in New York, Los Angeles, and London." End quote. It was difficult to do Jim Henson justice in this short presentation. Initially, I was planning to cover some of his greater, more famous achievements, including The Muppet Show, Dark Crystal, and The Labyrinth. But the more research I did, the more I realized that the skills and qualities that he was so famous for later in life were there all along, and evident from the very beginning. So although I left a great deal out of the story, I hope you enjoyed this brief introduction to some of Henson's earliest works. I'd like to finish with a quote from Time. "Jim Henson can be credited with many accomplishments. He had the most profound influence on children of any entertainer of his time. He adapted the ancient art of puppetry to the most modern of mediums, television, transforming both. He created a TV show that was one of the most popular on Earth. But Henson's greatest achievement was broader than any of these. Through his work, he helped sustain the qualities of fancifulness, warmth, and consideration that have been so threatened by our coarse, cynical age." Thank you.
Sing a song.